Coming up on Network Africa. Heavy gunfire echoes round the Sudanese capital Khartoum, where thousands of protesters are demanding the resignation of President Omar al-Bashir. The United Nations says at least 47 people have been killed in recent days as Eastern forces seek to take Libya's capital, Tripoli, from an internationally recognized government. And Algeria's parliament appoints Abdelkader Ben Salah, the Speaker of the Upper House, as the country's interim president. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. We begin today in North Africa, where embattled Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has called for dialogue, saying it is the only way to resolve the crisis that has hit the country. He has also warned of groups trying to hold the nation hostage and conspiring with foreigners as thousands of people continue to demand for his resignation.
Security forces in Sudan fired tear gas to try and break up thousands of protesters gathered outside the army headquarters in the capital. Heavy gunshots were reported as videos live streamed online show protesters dropping to the ground at the sound of gunfire. Protesters have been camping out for a third night, demanding the resignation of President Omar al-Bashir. However, the Minister of Defense and Vice President Awad Mohammed has warned that the army will not allow the country to slip into chaos. It says although the armed forces do not oppose the aspiration of protesters, they will not compromise on Sudan's security, unity, and leadership. His comment after a meeting with military chiefs followed reports that soldiers tried to protect protesters demanding President Omar al-Bashir's resignation and clashed with security forces who tried to disperse them. Demonstrators accused Bashir, who is wanted by international prosecutors for alleged war crimes in the Western Darfur region, of presiding over years of repression and promoting policies that devastated the economy. Sudan has been rocked by months of small but persistent protests that were sparked by bread price rises and cash shortages. The demonstrations later turned against President Omar al-Bashir, a former paratrooper who had been in office since 1989.
Let's get more on this story from a foreign affairs analyst, DECLAN IHEKAIRE. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much.
So first it was Algeria, now Sudan. Are we seeing a rebirth of the Arab Spring?
Thank you. We're bound to see many of the Arab Spring in Africa, bearing in mind that most of our leaders they are used to sit tight, when it comes to the seat of power. They so much see it as something that is their birthright. They see it as an avenue to amass so much wealth. They see it as an avenue to oppress the masses. And so you will always see a revolt from the downtrodden. And I can see a situation where it's getting wider every day. Africans are getting wiser, unlike before. And it's a signal to bad leaders. Beyond sit tight, it's a signal to bad leaders who are not concerned about the welfare of the people. That one day, the people they are supposed to govern will rise up against them.
But where do you see this going? Because the Sudan protests, they started earlier in the year, but they kind of died down a bit. Do you see this going the same way it went in Algeria with President Bouteflika resigning? Yeah,
you see, the best kind of protest is a protest where you start and you retreat. You retreat to re-strategize. And if you see what is going on in Sudan now, the forces of the masses are getting much, and they are getting braver. They are even getting to lure the soldiers into understanding their plight. I think that's the best way to go, bearing in mind that the president there has spent 30 years. It's not his birthright. And moreover, if he's doing well, I don't see people protesting. But they are there for selfish reasons. They are there to amass unnecessary wealth. don't forget that the so-called president is also going to face International Court
Yes.
of Justice, okay, for war crimes. And so you might see a situation where he might want to remain on that seat till eternity. And that will be giving him some kind of immunity. But I want to appreciate the Sudanese for the way they are taking it.
Okay. Well, what do you make of President Omar al-Bashir's response so far? I mean, apart from calling for dialogue, he also warned that, well, he's saying that some UN unnamed groups are of trying to hold the nation hostage and conspiring with foreigners. What do you make of his response?
That's always the language. That's always the language. I remember in Nigeria here sometime, we the civil society went on protest. The government would say we're being sponsored, that we're being sponsored, we have been hijacked. It's a common language, always comes from the oppressors. That's his language they always use to make it look as if there are some powers who doesn't want them to be in power. Yes, if the people who put you there are saying we don't want you, then I think it's reasonable enough for you to start having a real thing. But it's really getting out of hand in Africa. Most of these guys wants to be there for till eternity. They don't want to go. They want to stay there for life. And I think they should start understanding the fact that the people are getting more. They are getting more knowledge, into governance, and they should understand that the more they kill, the more they are to be killed too. It's quite unfortunate that we're having this, but I can tell you it's a very good signal against oppression coming from leaders.
Yeah, there have been a lot of international calls urging the government to refrain from using forces. However, at least 7 people have been killed. If this crisis is not handled properly, could it end up into something like what we're seeing in Libya at the moment? Of
course, you will see that the international community will have to come in. They will have to, they might even want to talk to the president to resign, or they might want to use some other strategies, maybe to topple the government, because there's no reasonable international body that will be so adamant to the plight of civilians who are not armed, being shot, by soldiers.
Yeah, which leads me to my next question. What role can the African Union play, or the African Union is expected to play in this crisis?
Well, I'm not seeing much. I won't see much from the African Union.
Yeah. What would you expect them?
Yeah, we expect them to react. But how many of them will have the conscience to talk to Omar at this point in time? Bearing in mind that they have this trait, of maybe also having the same trait, to remain in power perpetually. So I see. He that must come for equity must come with clean hand. That's what you should talk about. The only countries that I know that can really come in now are countries that are better than Sudan, countries that are more developed than Sudan. They can come now and talk to Sudanese president and say, look, do it the right way. But Africans that are still within the same system with the current president of Sudan, I don't see them doing much.
I think the main question here is, do you see Bashir stepping down?
Well, he has to step down. He just has to step down. But my fear is this. My fear is that owing to the international court waiting for him for trial, he might find it difficult to step down. But he will be forced to step down.
If he does step down, will he face justice?
Of course, he will. He will, and he just have to.
Foreign Affairs Analyst DECLAN, IHEKAIRE, it was a pleasure speaking with you on Network Africa. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.